You see him at a party and it feels like getting punched in the stomach by someone you're in love with. He's in the corner, mid-conversation, laughing at something. Someone brushes past you with a drink and you barely notice because you can't look away. Watching him hurts in this specific way you've been trying not to feel for years. It's not attraction, it's worse, it's recognition of what you're not. He's just standing there with a beer, fully inhabiting his own skin, and it makes you feel like you're haunting your own body. Someone asks what he does and he just tells them. Clean, direct, no hedge, no self-deprecating joke, no apologetic preamble. I'm a musician. I teach. I run a small studio. And you realize you haven't answered that question honestly in 5 years because you don't know who you are anymore. You've been so many hypothetical people in your head that you've become nobody in the room. Later you're outside and somehow you end up talking to him, and it's the kind of conversation that makes you want to cry because it reminds you that connection used to feel like this. Easy, real. He's not performing, he's not networking, he's not doing that thing you do where you're already writing your next sentence while pretending to listen. He's just there. Solid, undeniable, a person, not a portfolio of possibilities. And when you walk away, you feel something dangerous rising in your chest. It's not admiration, it's grief. You're mourning the person you could have been if you had chosen instead of hesitated. He is living proof that the life you keep telling yourself you will start when you are ready is actually just a life, and other people are living it, right now. While you're still outlining possibilities, everyone around you is already living. That guy at the party is the proof of who you could be, and the reason this image is unbearable is because you know he didn't need permission, or certainty, or the perfect moment. He just chose, and you haven't. A Danish philosopher named Søren Kierkegaard said something 180 years ago that's going to hurt. The self is not something you discover, it's something you create through the terrifying act of commitment. And if you refuse to choose, you don't get to exist. That guy exists. You're still the rough draft of someone who never made it to the page. If you've ever felt like you're hiding from your own potential, subscribe right now. Because we're about to go somewhere most people are too scared to look. There's a guy I want you to meet. Let's call him Daniel. Daniel is 34. He works in product management at a tech company. It's fine, pays well, looks good on LinkedIn. He's been there 6 years. He lives in a decent apartment with decent furniture and a French press he uses every morning while listening to podcasts about people who actually do things. Every Sunday night, Daniel sits on his couch with his laptop open. He's got 17 tabs loaded, a coding bootcamp he's considering, a graduate program in psychology, a digital nomad forum, a business idea doc he's been refining for 2 years, a half-written novel, a YouTube channel he might start. He clicks between them, reads a little, takes notes, tells himself he's exploring his options and being strategic, and waiting for the right time. But here's what's actually happening in Daniel's chest as he sits there. There's a weight, a heaviness that's hard to name. It's not quite sadness. It's not quite anxiety. It's something worse. It's the feeling of slowly erasing yourself, because Daniel isn't exploring. Daniel is hiding. He's found the most sophisticated way to avoid becoming anyone at all. The tabs aren't possibilities. They're alibis. They're evidence he can point to that says, see, I'm working on myself. I'm trying to figure it out. But he's not figuring anything out. He's performing the theatre of potential while the years dissolve around him. And the worst part? Daniel knows this. On some level, he can't quite admit to himself. He knows that every Sunday night he spends refreshing those 17 tabs is another week he's chosen to stay undefined. Another week he's chosen comfort over existence. This is what Kierkegaard called despair. But not the crying kind, the invisible kind, the kind where you've anesthetized yourself so completely that you don't even realize you're suffocating. Here's what happened to us. We were told that keeping your options open was smart. Strategic. That committing too early was naive. That the world rewards people who stay flexible, who pivot, who don't put all their eggs in one basket. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. But here's what no one told you. Infinite possibility is another name for paralysis. Think about it. When you have 3 career paths in front of you, you can still make a decision. When you have 30, You freeze. When you convince yourself that every choice you make is closing doors to better versions of your life, you stop making choices entirely. And you know what's insidious about this? It feels like freedom. It feels expansive. You tell yourself you're someone who contains multitudes, who's too complex and interesting to be pinned down to one thing. But you're not free. You're trapped. You're trapped in the prison of your own potential. Kierkegaard saw this happening in his own time, people living in what he called the aesthetic stage, moving from experience to experience, pleasure to pleasure, never committing to anything, never becoming anyone, just existing, tasting everything, digesting nothing. And here's the cruelty. The more options you keep open, the more you're betraying yourself. Because deep down, underneath all the exploration and the figuring it out, you already know what you want. You've known for a while. You want to write, or teach, or build something, or commit to that person, or move to that city, or start that thing that scares you. You know, but knowing it means you have to choose it. And choosing it means every other shimmering possibility has to die. It means you might fail at the thing you actually wanted, and that's unbearable. Because right now you can still tell yourself that you would have been great at all of it, if only you'd tried. The unchosen life lets you stay perfect in theory. The chosen life makes you imperfect in practice. So you stay unchosen. Let me ask you something. When do you feel it most? That pit in your stomach, that low-grade dread, that feeling that something is deeply, fundamentally wrong even though objectively everything is fine. Is it Sunday nights? Scrolling Instagram at 2 a.m? When someone asks what you've been up to? When you're around people who seem to have their shit together? When you're alone with your thoughts? You've probably tried to fix it. Meditation apps, therapy, exercise, journaling, better sleep hygiene, medications, boundaries, more self-care, less self-care, and nothing works. Or it works for 3 weeks and then the dread comes back, heavier than before. Here's why. You're not anxious because something is wrong with your brain chemistry. You're anxious because something is wrong with your life. Kierkegaard called this the anxiety of freedom, that sickening vertigo that comes from being capable of choice but refusing to make one. It's your soul's alarm system. It's the part of you that knows you're living in bad faith, that you're betraying yourself every single day by refusing to become real. And here's what most people do. They try to eliminate the anxiety. They treat it like a bug in the system that needs to be patched. They medicate it, meditate it away, positive affirmation it into submission. But Kierkegaard would tell you something radical. Don't run from the anxiety. Follow it. The anxiety is not the problem. The anxiety is the messenger. It's showing you exactly where you're lying to yourself. It's the crack in the comfortable prison you've built. Think about Daniel on that couch with his 17 tabs. That heaviness in his chest? That's not a disorder. That's his actual self screaming at him that he's wasting his life. That's the person he could be, banging on the walls, begging him to just choose something, anything, and actually live it. The anxiety isn't what's killing him. The refusal to choose is what's killing him. The anxiety is what's trying to save him. Let me go deeper, because this is where it gets heavy. Kierkegaard distinguished between 2 kinds of despair. The first is obvious, the despair where you know you're suffering, where you're aware something's wrong. But the second kind is more insidious. It's the despair of not knowing you're in despair. It's the despair of someone who's comfortable, who's functional, who looks fine from the outside, who has hobbies and friends and a decent job and a nice apartment, but who isn't actually living as anyone. This is what he called not willing to be oneself. And it's everywhere. It's the epidemic no one's talking about. You see it in the person who shape-shifts depending on who they're with, who has no stable center, who's always performing. You see it in the person who's been figuring things out for a decade. You see it in the person who intellectualizes everything but commits to nothing. You see it in the person who's so open-minded that they stand for nothing at all. These people aren't depressed in the clinical sense. They're erased. They've spent so long avoiding the risk of being someone specific that they've become a kind of human placeholder. And here's the truly disturbing part. This can go on for an entire lifetime. You can be 65 years old, objectively successful, comfortable, surrounded by people, and still have never actually existed as yourself. Kierkegaard called this the sickness unto death. Not physical death, spiritual death, the death that happens while you're still breathing, the slow suicide of refusing to become, and you can feel it, can't you? If you're honest. You can feel the weight of all that unchosen potential. All those versions of yourself you're keeping alive in your head, while the real you, the one that could actually exist, is suffocating. Every day you don't choose is another day you teach yourself that you're not real, that you're just a collection of possibilities, a vague potential, a rough draft that will never become a finished work. So let me say the thing you already know but haven't let yourself think clearly. You're going to die having never lived as yourself. Not maybe. Not if you don't change. You're on that path right now. You're actively choosing it every day you don't make a different choice. And all the ways you're avoiding this truth, the busyness, the planning, the researching, the working on yourself, the waiting for clarity, those aren't preparation for life. Those are life passing by, while you watch from behind glass. That's the line. That's the turning point. You can keep listening, keep nodding, keep telling yourself you'll deal with this later. Or you can feel the full weight of what I just said and let it break something open in you. Okay, you're still here, which means some part of you is ready to hear this. You have to jump. This is Kierkegaard's leap of faith, and it's not what most people think. It's not about religion, though it can be. It's about every significant choice in life. It's about the moment you stop analyzing and commit. The moment you stop treating your days like a research project and start treating them like a life. Here's what the leap actually means: choosing something specific without certainty. Committing to a path without proof it's the right one. Becoming someone definite instead of remaining beautifully, tragically undefined. And this is where most people stop, because we've been trained to believe that good decisions come from careful analysis, from making pro-chalk-con lists, from gathering more data, from waiting until we're sure. But Kierkegaard would tell you, certainty doesn't come before the leap, it comes after. You don't find the right path and then choose it. You choose a path and make it right through the act of walking it fully, honestly, with everything you have. This is about identity creation, not decision-making. You're not discovering a pre-existing, true self that's been waiting for you to find it. You're choosing to become someone through committed action, and that choice brings you into existence. Think about Daniel again. The version of him that's real, that actually exists in the world, isn't the one with 17 tabs open. It's the one who closes 16 of them. Who chooses one path and walks it until he discovers whether it resonates with who he's trying to become. Maybe he chooses wrong. Maybe he commits to something and 6 months later realizes it's not his. Fine. That's not failure. That's data. That's the process of becoming. He tried to become someone, learn something essential about himself, and now he can choose again more wisely. But the Daniel who never chooses? He learns nothing. He becomes nothing. He stays a ghost. The leap isn't about making the perfect choice. It's about making a real choice instead of no choice at all. Let me tell you what happens when you stop hiding, when you finally make the leap, when you commit to becoming someone specific instead of remaining everyone hypothetically. At first, there's terror, real, visceral terror. You've closed doors. You've said no to 1,000 possible futures. You've bet on something. The safety net of infinite possibility is gone. You're exposed. You could fail. You could succeed and discover it's not what you thought. You're vulnerable in a way you haven't been in years. And that fear, it doesn't go away. Let me be clear about that. You don't make the leap and suddenly become confident and certain. The fear stays, but something fundamental shifts. The fear transforms from the paralyzing anxiety of hiding into the clarifying anxiety of becoming. And that second kind of fear? That's not only bearable, it's meaningful. It's the fear that comes with being alive. You stop waking up with that pit in your stomach, that vague dread that something's deeply wrong, because even though you're still anxious, you're anxious about real things now, things that matter to your actual self, not anxious about maintaining a performance that means nothing to you. Your anxiety becomes anchored. It has an object. And weirdly, that makes it easier to carry. You start noticing that you have energy again. Not the manic energy of someone running from themselves, but the steady energy that comes from moving in a direction you've chosen. You're not using all your psychological resources to maintain a facade of possibility. You're using them to actually do something. You stop obsessively comparing yourself to others, not because you've become enlightened, but because you're too busy actually doing your thing to worry about their thing. Comparison loses its power because you're not trying to be everything anymore. You're trying to be one thing deeply. You develop what Kierkegaard called inwardness, a sense of self that doesn't depend on external validation, that doesn't constantly need the mirror of other people's reactions to know you exist. You're anchored in the choice you've made, and that gives you a strange new stability. And here's the part that surprises people. Purpose stops being this thing you're desperately searching for. It stops being this missing puzzle piece you need to find before your life can start. Purpose becomes something you're creating through the act of committed living. The meaning you've been looking for doesn't arrive as a revelation. It emerges as a byproduct of choosing something, living it fully, and letting yourself be shaped by the struggle of becoming. Remember her? The woman we started with? She's not some distant fantasy. She's not the person you'll be after you figure everything out, after you take all the right courses, after you wait for the perfect moment. She's the person who exists the moment you choose, the moment you commit, the moment you stop treating your life like a menu and start treating it like a canvas. Every day you wait for certainty, she gets further away. Every day you keep your options open, she dissolves a little more. Every day you refuse to choose, you teach yourself that she's not worth the risk of being wrong. But she's still there, waiting. She's always been waiting. The path to her isn't more research. It's not another personality test or career quiz or year of figuring it out. The path to her is through choice, through commitment, through the terrifying, liberating act of becoming someone specific in a world that wants you to remain nobody at all. Kierkegaard understood something that most people never grasp. The opposite of despair isn't happiness. It's willing yourself into existence. It's the moment you stop living as a collection of possibilities and start living as a person. Imperfect, specific, real. You've been waiting for permission, for a sign, for certainty, for the right moment, for the fear to go away, for a clearer path. It's not coming. The only thing that's coming is more time wasted. More years where you look back and realize you were always capable of choosing, you just wouldn't do it. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Choose something, today, right now if possible, not perfectly, not with certainty, not after you've thought about it more. Choose with the understanding that you might be wrong, and that's okay, because wrong choices that you commit to teach you more than no choice at all. Choose the relationship or end it. Choose the career path or pivot. Choose the city or stay. Choose the project or close the tab. Choose the person you want to become, or admit you're choosing to remain undefined. Make the leap, not because it's safe, not because you're ready, not because you know it'll work out, but because the alternative, this comfortable, suffocating life of infinite possibility and zero existence, is killing you slowly, and you know it. Your life is happening now, not later, not after you figure it out, now, and the person you could be. She's not waiting indefinitely. Every day you refuse to choose her, she becomes a little less real, a little more like a ghost you once imagined. Choose her. Choose today, before you run out of time. Comment below with the version of yourself you refuse to keep postponing.